Happy New Year. Where are you at right now?
Norway, Telemark, uh, nature. I have 1 meter of snow and 15 minus Celsius.
Wow.
So, yeah,
And you got that your little cave's got a chimney. You look
yeah,
very cozy and warm.
I'm comfortable warm with the chimney. I
Oh
wake
yeah.
up with -5 degrees in my room. So, and
That's
then I
serious.
start making some heat and yeah, go and take a piss in the snow.
Literally. It's really cool to see you. Thanks for taking time to talk with me. I wanted to go way back to when we first met because it was almost 15 years ago, around 14 years ago. And we were both at Tiger Muay Thai training
Yeah.
camp in Phuket, Thailand. And I was spending like a month there, and I think you were spending around 3 months. And if I remember correctly, you had just come from China where you were also training.
Yeah.
So for the first question is, how did you start that journey to go to Asia? And what was that like at that age? How old were you? Like 23, 24?
So it started when I was 19. I started with Tai Chi. One of my best friends had his mother was a Tai Chi master. So I started Tai Chi as 19 and then started with meditation or at that time surviving sitting still. But anyway, I started Tai Chi at 19, went to China at 22 years old,
Wow.
and then Thailand at 23 years. Because I was 1 year in China and then 6 months in Thailand.
What was your goal going to China? Like,
I tried to learn, my intention was Kung Fu and continue doing Tai Chi.
and when I met you in Thailand, I remember one of the first things that kind of blew my mind was how flexible you were. Like you were just palming the floor. Uh, was that something you kind of attained in the year in China?
Yeah, because before I came to China, I could manage to touch my knees.
Your
Touch
your knee.
knees before China.
Uh,
Before I met you, I could only touch my knees because of, let's say, 8 years of bodybuilding, 20 years of football, and 20 years of ski, just called bandy. And I also did 15, 20 years without stretching. So when I came to China, my master laughed. He always laughed at me. The whole group was like, okay, cool. This is an example of how stiff you can be. So, but after a year, we trained, I trained around 40, 45 hours a week. So, after a year, then my body had managed to go through a lot of stretches.
yeah, that's wild. From starting at being not flexible at all to in 1 year you're palming the floor, but you're also training 45 hours a week. So it's not like a casual training program you were in. You're in a pretty immersive, completely immersive program.
Yeah, it was the only thing I did. So we wake up at 5 and go through the Gong Tai Chi. So a few hours before breakfast. And then we go to the temple. And then we had, was it 3 hours around? Can't remember the division, but let's say 3 hours training, back to the temple for 3 hours. We had meditation, and I also did weights in the beginning. So at the most, I trained almost 11 hours in a day.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was training.
All right, well, let's bring it to Thailand because when I met you, I was just kind of I was training as hard as I could for 1 month, but I didn't have like a long-term goal of martial arts in my life. And I just wanted to train, and I didn't really want to fight. I definitely didn't want to fight. And you were training. I remember you were like, at the end of my 3 months, I'm gonna have a fight in Thailand. Um, did you do that? Like, what was that story? And also, why did you feel the need to have that fight?
Uh, that kind of comes back to why I went to China. Two reasons. One was the martial arts of training, but the other thing was to learn to fight better. Because the years before China, I was in drugs, crime, violence. So part of my life was, and so I went to China to learn how to fight as well as to learn to just train. But then I also learned how to not fight anymore in China. So when I came to Thailand, Thailand became a place I wanted to respect fighting. So I learned Muay Thai, and after 3 months, I did an amateur fight. And then after 6 months, I did a professional fight. And the reason now was I understood the respect of going into a ring where the other the other guy is equal in the knowledge of fighting. So it was for me to test my skills, but also to respect the fighting and actually meet the guy that actually can beat me with his skills. So it was, yeah.
What was the difference between the amateur fight you had and then the pro fight in your preparation, your mindset, and then also maybe just the actual fighter or the arena? What were the differences?
The mindset wasn't was the same in both. I was secure, I was healthy, I was calm. I did qigong before my fights, and I also did meditation between my rounds. The first amateur fight was bigger gloves, do elbows. We couldn't do knees in the face, and we had pads on the legs. Uh, so that was different because in the professional we can just do elbows, knees in the face, no protection, and less gloves. It's more intense and yeah, more.
Yeah, what the first elbow feel like to the chin?
It felt normal because of my, but I could feel the strength of the elbow because no one had really put the elbow in my face, but I had people kicking in my face or punching in my face. So it was more like a very bone to bone experience, and I got two of them. So
It teach you. I imagine it teaches you to put your hands up and how important defense is.
yeah, I remember the first one was in the first round. We were boxing, so I was like, no, we did Muay Thai, and I was having in the corner, and suddenly he managed to go between my punches, and he gave me a really elbow in the face, and I was like, woof. And after that, I was more respectful because of the defense, and yeah.
Wow. What do you think? For me, after that month in Thailand, martial arts became a small part of my life, but like a very small part. And and it served a purpose for me, even though I'm not super like intensely into it. But it also kind of made me realize some things about how useful it could have been as a younger person, like as a kid learning martial arts. Um, what do you think about that idea? And if so, like why would martial arts be useful to young people?
Oh, the simple answer is health, movement. just the physical body, but to do martial arts, you also need to have a mind that's connected to your body. So it's very healthy. It makes you safe, not just safe from external attack, but also safe from sliding on the ice or going down the stairs. It's a lot of things that make your body moving good. But you also have the thing that when people learn to respect movement and fighting, they also learn more to respect other people. So, for instance, a lot of people who's with crime, gangs, violence, just in general, live a life in violence. When you go to a martial art gym, you really learn how to respect, because maybe you were the toughest guy outside the gym, but when you come into a martial art gym, you suddenly ground floor in your skills. So you have a challenge with your ego, and you learn how to be humble, and you learn how to use power in a way that's safe for yourself and also the people around you, instead of just being mad and angry and throw punches.
Yeah, that was one of the things that surprised me, I guess, when I was at the training camp, and all of the trainers and fighters were like the nicest people.
Yeah.
I like expect them to be these rough fighters, but they were the opposite of tough guys. They were super happy, and I guess part of it is getting all that energy out. Like if you're training so hard, you don't have energy to go start a fight. You don't have extra balled up energy. But then also, like you said, just being humbled by the fact. I remember some of my trainers were like 5 feet tall, but they would fuck me up, like they would kick me
Yeah.
face, no problem. And it just makes you think, I need to respect everyone. It doesn't matter how big they are. It doesn't matter what they look like. If you have a certain skill, it can be problematic for someone who doesn't have it. What up? What aspect?
Okay.
So you don't just train as a martial artist. You do all sorts of training. Is there any like one practice that throughout the different types of training that you do, is there any one practice that's like pivotal?
Yeah. The best thing to do is, for me at least, is the skill of observing my breathing.
Explain that to someone who wouldn't understand what you're talking about when you say observe your breathing.
Imagine you drive a car in, let's say, how you say, you have miles, let's say 100, it doesn't matter. Let's say 100 kilometers or miles per hour, but you're driving in 100, and it's okay. You need to focus. It takes energy, but it's good. Imagine if this car goes in 10 in every turn and everything you do. Imagine how observant you can be, how much energy you have to do, and how fast you can react on every turn. That's the result of observing your breathing. Your breathing is always there. So when you learn to observe the breathing, you don't have to do the breathing. And when that's happening, you are able to activate the senses and your mind as a tool to the moment. It's like breathing is 0, and then you have 5 senses, and then you have the mind. So if you stay in the breathing, you can observe the senses and you can observe the mind.
And say in like a normal day of Lars, what is your practice like as far as observing your breathing? Is it something that would start with like a meditation, or is it something that throughout the day you come back to, reminding yourself to observe your breathing? Or is it something that like you've trained yourself so well to do that you're always sort of in a state of observation?
I'm always in a state of observation.
And how long at what point in your life did that happen?
Okay, the story begins at 19 with Tai Chi, and then I had my first meditation. I was going to do 20 minutes, 7 o'clock in the morning, with my master and another student. And this was also at the time I was doing drugs, being criminal, and just having a rough life. And when I was sitting there, it was going through a test, 20 minutes of like, ooh, do I survive? But I can't move. My master is here. It's only me and the student. So why should I move? But it was horrible inside because my mind was everywhere. So I went to China so let's say 4 years later. And then I started having meditation every day, Qigong every day, Tai Chi every day. So China was the first time I integrated breathing, but it was still, let's say, I usually say it's an unconscious observation of the awareness I have of my breathing and practice. So what I mean about this is still, when I lived in China and Thailand, I still defined as my unconscious life. But when I moved to 2016, I moved to the forest. I had no home, and I lived mainly in the forest for 6 years. And here I learned how to observe in a conscious state. So I learned to observe meditation in every senses. I learned to observe my mind. I needed to connect the knowledge of my mind with my body. So after 6 years living mostly in the forest, I kind of integrated observation in life.
Mhm. What was your reason for going to live in the forest? And what was that like? What do you mean when you say mostly in the forest? Like, what's that day in the life in the forest?
Okay. In 2000, I kind of had everything. I had the perfect girlfriend. I had opportunities with children. I had apartment. I had my gym. I had friends. I had everything. And then the year started. So the autumn 2015 to autumn 2016, I went through, let's say, 5 funerals and kind of a breakup and then a breakup again and abortion. So it's like I went through 8 dead relationships in 1 year. And February 2016, I moved out from my girlfriend, and then I didn't have a place to stay until October 2016. Then me and my military friend, he brought me to the forest to just show me how to be in the forest for a night. And then when I was laying there underneath the stars with my friend, I was like, can't I just move out here? And then 5 days later, I bought all of it instead of finding myself a place to live in the city. So 2016, 4th of November, I moved to the forest to live. And then I went to the gym. I had to run the gym and then back to the forest, back to the gym and back to the forest.
Wow. So, okay, so what was your setup like in the forest?
I have one big backpack. In there, I have sleeping bag. I have not a tent. I have like a big thin sleeping bag, and yeah, I kind of just made a mattress on the snow in the beginning. Just slept on the snow with some. I cut down the how you say the grains from the trees and just make a bed. Uh, so yeah, the first time was cold, very cold, because I thought I had a warmer sleeping bag than I
Mhm.
did, but I didn't. So I woke up freezing, freezing the first
Wow,
night. But yeah, you learn.
that's wild. And you did that, you said, for almost 6 years, living in the forest and then going into your gym to teach classes?
Yeah. After a while, the gym got less and less because I went through a really deep journey with myself. I went through 3 generations of my family, uh, and I went through all my emotions, all my patterns, all my behavior, and everything. So it went deeper and deeper. So I had a lot of members, I had a lot of clients, but then the members got less because my depth of my speaking became too much. And then in the end, I only had a few people, but I also managed to remove myself of needing anything. So I didn't need too much money to survive. So I could suddenly work 80% less because
Mhm.
I managed to uh, observe myself 80% more.
And is that something that you still sort of employ in your life? This like almost minimalistic needs?
Yeah, like I don't need anything. Like I'm detached from life as well. So, like I say, one day I'm gonna sleep for a long time. It's gonna be nice. And but before that, I'm just observing life. I'm here, but I have everything I need. I have so much material wealth around me. I have more than enough everywhere. But the main thing I really appreciate in life is my internal peace. So, yeah.
Two questions. The first is like, what are your expenses? Do you spend money on food, bills, credit cards, whatever? But like, what are your actual
Of
expenses that cost money?
food,
Food.
yeah.
Okay. And
Difficult question.
do you still teach classes, or do you
No.
still no? So this is a question, something that I've been thinking about a little bit recently. I had this experience where I spent a long time trying to get an agent to represent my book, and I got someone who really liked it, and ultimately they decided, no, we don't want the book. Um, and I started thinking about if my life was aligned with freedom, that I don't want anyone to be able to sort of control like my dreams in that way. You know, this sort of like open this door for me. It's great if the door is open for me, but at the same time, I had to be content with not having other people decide my dreams, you know, what I want to do. And that got me thinking a lot about like freedom and how one would align their lives with freedom, or their life with freedom. Um, and I don't know, I just wondered if you have any thoughts about that idea, um, if that makes sense.
So you're asking me about freedom?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Like, so if someone was to align their life and say like freedom is my guiding principle, or one of the main principles, um, what would some of the things that they would do? And I ask because the idea of like not having too many bills or not having debt, you know, that's a type of freedom that not many people in the modern world can enjoy. But it is a type of, a section of freedom. But I think
Yeah.
it's just a piece.
The The thing is, most people that okay, I don't know, say most, but because we're talking worldwide, but a lot of people, and especially if I come to Norway, even the people that feel poor, feel they have too much bills and so on, it's usually just lack of knowledge. So you have emotional economics, and you have or emotional economy, and then you have essential. Mostly what we use is things that is emotional. Ice cream, some candy bar, smokes, alcohol, dinner outside, all this stuff that's gonna stimulate. So that's why we are poor. That's why we are stressed. That's why we are usually not satisfied. It doesn't matter if you're a millionaire. You can be in the same position internally of freedom as a guy that's have just food. So freedom, I think, is a definition of your own subject, where you need to find satisfaction in what you have. And so the sense is, first, you have the people that doesn't have food, roof, heat. Okay, for this is just, yeah, suffering of this world. But then you have a lot of the people that's actually having food, and they have a roof, they have the heat, but then they complain. So they doesn't control the resources they have. So they could maybe develop some.
Those would be people like me.
What do you say?
That's people like me.
People like you.
Yeah.
You spend your money on non-essentials.
Yeah. I don't think I live an extravagant life, but if you think about only your essentials, it's really not that much.
No.
And I have things over here that I don't necessarily need. And I also sometimes I enjoy, or I'm like trained habitually to complain.
Yeah.
In my culture too, in like Northeast New Jersey, New York, people kind of complaining is also like a sense of humor, like making jokes is and complaining through jokes. Like Seinfeld was a famous American TV show, and it's always about them complaining. um, but yeah, this idea of if you have your essential needs, but it makes me think about addiction, because addiction was
Yeah.
one of the things I also thought about when I thought about freedom. That if you're addicted to something, ultimately you don't have freedom completely. And whether it's like cigarettes or food or sugar, like everyone, maybe not everyone, but a lot of us have these cravings and temptations and addictions to things. Have you ever had an addiction to something and
Yeah.
overcome it?
Everything. So I've been addicted to a lot of things through life. So I even been addicted to training, addicted to drugs, addicted to the stimulants of life. But I quit everything, and I even quit attaching myself to life. So a simple way you can say addiction is attachment. So yeah. So my answer, I've been addicted to everything, and I have removed myself from every addiction.
And okay,
But
you
I'm
spoke.
still in life, so I still can be addicted to enjoying life. So it's not I'm living as a monk, but I'm conscious of everything. If I want to eat, let's say I want to eat a chocolate bar, a protein, chocolate bar. I know that it's sugar in it, so I can eat it, but I'm not naive of the consequences. If I suddenly feel my body is less powerful after eating it or the day after, I have to receive the consequence without judgment. So I can still have a, like, suddenly it's a dinner party or it's something that happens. Okay, I can eat, I can drink, I can. Usually I don't drink alcohol anymore. But if I put negative stuff to my body, at least I need to appreciate the experience and accept the consequence.
Appreciate the experience, not feel terribly guilty. But I think that also comes in with having discipline, right? Having a very high level of discipline so that when you're cheating or enjoying something, it's not a daily habit, it's not a daily addiction. Would you say, if you had to give advice to just a regular person with a regular addiction, what would be some of the things you would tell them to try to do?
I will start to change one addiction with another addiction. So you go from bad addiction to less bad addiction if you are not disciplined. So it's a way to not remove yourself from the runaway you have with yourself, because most people just run away from ourselves. And because of this, we stimulate. So, but then a lot of stimulants can destroy ourselves. Let's say alcohol. Alcohol destroys people's internal. And let's say he's able to say, oh, I can maybe go from being an alcoholic to a stoner. Okay, that's better, because the journey from being a stoner to maybe go out and, I don't know, do a workout, it's easier than the journey from going from alcohol to a workout. So if you really want to change yourself, I'm back to breathing, because it's our impulses that makes us do stuff. But when we learn to observe, we go slower. So when the impulse comes, you can also see yourself having the impulse at the same time. So you can, like, should I act on the impulse? No, I'm too calm and go back to the breathing. Or I'm calm enough to coach myself in my mind to think, no, don't do that. Do some less stimulants. Go in the right direction. It's better to take one step. I usually say 2 steps forward, 1 back. Imagine if you go 2 steps forward and 1 back your whole life. Wow.
You're going forward.
You're going pretty forward.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I remember when we first met, you gave me good advice. It was about the 3rd day of training, and I woke up and I went to the gym, and my whole body was hurting, like aching. And I saw you on a scooter, and you were like, Nate, we're going to the beach. And I was like, well, you're not going to train today. You're like, no, I got my body needs to rest. And I was I was a novice, a rookie. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I got to go train every day. But you had this wisdom where it's like, no, I need to take a day off. You had found this balance, right? And that's something that throughout training, like, came in handy with, like, finding balance. And what do you think about balance in general for a person's life? How do you find balance?
Before, I found more balance between bad and good. So let's say before I was 30, and when I was 20, I could do ecstasy for 3 days from Friday to Sunday. But on Monday, I was in the sauna at the gym, drinking protein shake, just like, whew, maybe train for 5 days and go back to a balance, and then go back doing drugs and drinking. So that's one type of balance. I could also eat healthy sometimes and unhealthy sometimes. So I think a balance depends of what you put on your weight, or scale is probably a better word.
Mm.
So now my balance is different. My balance is about how I'm balanced between my emotional intelligence and my intellectual mind. So consciousness and observation is something that can observe my emotional intelligence, and it can also observe my intellectual mind. And are aligned, it feels flow. In the moment I feel the emotional different understanding that the intellectual mind, then I go in to find balance again. And then I usually find the breathing. Breathe, because in the moment I start breathing, you stop your mind. So when
Let's wrap this up with one more question.
okay.
All right, so you use this word a lot, flow, and what do you mean by flow when you say I'm in flow?
First thing, I think flow is when your mind is a part of your body. That means flow is something effortless. So I'm just doing stuff. I don't have a mind that's putting me into a future, or my mind that puts me into a past. So I'm in flow with the present moment. And that means to be flow with the present moment, I need to be flow with my body, my emotional intelligence, my physical body, and connected with the intellectual mind, my thinking and the thoughts. And so when everything is aligned, I'm in flow. And yeah.
And what are the results of flow? Like, how do you feel when you're in that state as opposed to when you're in a different state?
Peaceful and powerful at the same time.
Beautiful. All right, Lars, thanks for talking to me. To many
Yeah.
more of being in flow. I'm sorry about the connection here. It wasn't in perfect flow, but
It was a part of the experience.
for sure.
We needed to stop, take a moment, and go back to the podcast.
Yeah, patience.
Patience.
All right,
Cool,
brother.
bro. Okay.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Bye.